Sweet Jesus. You hear that? Do you hear what they're playing?
Each to their own, Johnny.
That's what peeps with bad taste always say.
Now that basically everybody has seen Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I figure it's time to talk about Cyberpunk 2077 again. As pretty much everybody has told you by now, and I'm sure you hold the opinion yourself if you've seen it, Edgerunners is really good. Like, surprisingly good for being a tie-in anime to a video game, or I guess by extension to a tabletop game. It was pretty much everything I wanted out of a Cyberpunk story. In fact, I wish the story of Edgerunners is what the story of the video game was. Somehow, Cyberpunk has surpassed 100,000 active players on Steam recently.
Mindless fucking consumerism wins the day again.
So I guess making a tie-in TV show that is better than the original is a really good advertising stunt. Because I figure a lot of you are about to be very disappointed by Cyberpunk's story, at least if you value the Cyberpunk genre. I tried to emphasize in my review almost 2 years ago that even if they fixed all the bugs with the game, it would still have a lot of problems. And if you're wondering, yes, I have played a few more hours of the game since the latest update. And no, my opinion has not changed. But of course, these two pieces of media are in two different mediums. So let's try and compare them in places where that's relevant, namely the story and characters, but also aspects of the universe and how they compare to the original tabletop game. And what better place to start than the story? But first, let's get to this video's sponsor. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. If you're anything like me, you are incredibly lazy and often torture yourself with meals consisting of canned chicken, broccoli, and rice. But what if I told you there's a smarter, cheaper, and healthier option? That's where HelloFresh comes in. HelloFresh delivers fresh, quality produce from the farm to your door in less than a week with foolproof step-by-step recipes that even someone like me can't mess up. All of the necessary ingredients are included, pre-portioned, for less than a trip to the grocery store. HelloFresh allows you to customize your box by swapping out protein sources or adding one to a veggie meal. I personally recommend the butter-basted steak and scallion gremolata, which both tastes fantastic and is nutritious so you don't have to feel guilty afterward. Make sure to use my link or go to HelloFresh.com and use code POGSynthOctober65 for 65% off plus free shipping on your first box. Once you click, my description will live update to count up the purchases. Now back to the video. So starting off with the video game, V is our player character, and despite the fact that we can customize him or her, they have a completely preset personality based on the street kid background. Effectively, the prologue doesn't even matter and can be completely skipped. So shortly after the prologue, V meets Jackie, or if you pick the corpo background, he already knows him. And the two become friends over the course of a montage, which is such an absolute fucking waste of potential for a video game. Gaming in general is a unique medium in that it is incredibly easy for a player character to be relatable because we're already inserting ourselves in his shoes. But it's much more difficult for NPCs unless they are essentially a party member. They're traveling with you constantly. Jackie only appears in a couple missions before the end of Act 1, not to mention, and I legitimately have no idea how I forgot about this, all the way back in E3 2019, they showed us Jackie dying, so I have no idea how they expected us to get invested in his character, considering we only spend a few hours with him. And so this could have been a great opportunity to have some companion missions, Mass Effect style, or really any other RPG, because originally this game was supposed to be a fucking RPG. Instead, it's an action-adventure FPS with light RPG mechanics, emphasis on light. And so anyway, to get back on track, you engage in a tutorial mission. It is essentially established that V and Jackie have been on some minor jobs leading up to this point, and finally, you get to meet Dexter Deshawn, a huge fixer in Night City, who wants to set you up with the heist of a lifetime.
Would you rather live in pieces, Mr. Nobody, die ripe, old, and smelling slightly of urine, or go down for all times in a blaze of glory, smelling near like posies, without seeing your 30th?
Finally, an opportunity for Jackie to live out his dreams of making it to the big leagues, being one of the greatest edge runners in the history of Night City. In this way, Jackie is essentially the stereotypical Cyberpunk 2020 protagonist. Now, obviously, it being a tabletop game that you play with your friends, you're probably going to invent your own elaborate backstory, but essentially the point of the game, unless the GM has something really specific in mind, is for you to go from zero to hero, to go from an average normal human gangster to a fully cybered up death machine with superhuman reflexes and strength. And in true cyberpunk fashion, eventually you or your friends are going to die because you piss off a giant mega corporation. Or maybe you ride off into the sunset if your GM wants a more stereotypical Western story with a happy ending, which is just a lot more boring. As for V, for the moment, he doesn't really have any real motivations. I guess he's just kind of hanging out with his friend, making money. I mean, we don't even really know the guy's real backstory. Like, are his parents dead? And if you pick the street kid background, there's implications that he knows a bunch of people in the Valentinos gang. I mean, he knows Padre, a major fixer related to them, but it very rarely comes up in game. So he's basically a blank slate, even though he has a predetermined personality. They even have a name, depending on which gender you're presenting as.
Hi, I'm Sky, and you must be Vincent?
It's a very strange blend of the nameless, faceless protagonists of Bethesda games and Geralt of Rivia, and it really doesn't work at all. This is the fate of any voiced protagonist. We already learned this with Fallout 4, and clearly CD Projekt Red didn't learn anything from Bethesda's mistakes. So anyway, you learn from Dexter Deshawn that you need to steal a prototype chip from Arasaka, and to do that, you need to acquire a spider bot with cloaking technology from the Maelstrom gang, who was supposed to hand it over after getting paid, which of course they didn't do. And also you need to meet Evelyn Parker, who is the client, who gives you more details. Evelyn tells you that the chip is called the Relic, a part of the Save Your Soul program, basically a personality construct, an engram as the game refers to it as, which is a perfect clone of a person's personality, a brain scan. It's essentially a way for the richest people in Night City to be immortal. Now, if you played the game Soma, you're going to ask several questions about whether or not a brain scan is really you, or it's just a clone of you, which isn't really you, but I suppose that's a discussion for another video. You also learn that the relic is in possession of Yorinobu Arasaka, the son of Saburo Arasaka, the founder and president of the company, who has now been alive for like over 150 years at this point. And so Evelyn takes you to Judy Alvarez, who is an expert brain dance editor, which are essentially these VR movies that play in your brain, kind of like Demolition Man. And she uses this technology to allow you to look into Evelyn's memories that were recorded.
You look like a cut of fuckable meat, are you?
And you use it to scope out Yorinobu's penthouse suite. Then V and Jackie team up and deal with Maelstrom.
Bang.
Basically kill everybody inside and grab the spider bot. And it's finally time for the heist. Dex and his buddy T-Bug, who's a netrunner who's been helping you out on missions before this, brief you on the plan to infiltrate this hotel and steal the chip. And so, kind of unceremoniously, you do those things with very little issue. But when you go to grab the relic, Yorinobu and Saburo arrive together, and so V and Jackie hide behind the TV, and we witness Yorinobu kill his own father. And I just want to point out a major plot hole here, because it's been bothering me since the release of this game. You literally have cameras in your eyes. You're telling me you couldn't just record this happening and show to the media that Yorinobu killed his own father? This is such a colossal fucking plot hole. You're really telling me between V and Jackie, who, by the way, V has the most advanced Kiroshi eyewear up until this point, supposedly, or something like that, can't fucking record shit? But whatever, anyway, so the hotel gets locked down, and as Jackie and V escape, Jackie gets filled full of lead and has to slot the relic inside his brain. Then the duo have to shoot their way out through various floors of the hotel, And as you get into the combat cab, Jackie bleeds out and dies.
It's gonna be alright, huh? You'll see Misty, your mom, everyone you love. Jackie, don't close your eyes.
Misty, I know. You always know.
And so, V has to take the chip and slots it inside himself. Once Delamain takes you back to Dex's apartment, he of course betrays you.
Remember our first convo? Seems I've chosen the quiet life after all. No blaze of glory for me.
And that's the end of Act 1. I'd say basically everything up until this point is great, outside of that plot hole. This really feels like a Cyberpunk story. This could be an actual tabletop campaign, or at least some kind of animated movie or show, right? Now let's compare this to Edgerunners Act 1. The show starts off with an illegal brain dance of some cyber psycho killing a bunch of cops and eventually being put down by Max Tack. The psycho is seen using top-of-the-line military-grade Sandevistan, essentially a reflex booster, which in-game is extremely overpowered, so it's very fitting that in the show it is just as broken and essentially one of the main plot devices. And the witness of this brain dance is our hero, David Martinez. He lives with his mother in one of the various mega buildings, straight out of Judge Dredd, and his mother is an EMT who is spending all of her hard-earned money supporting David and letting him go to an Arasaka Corpo school so that he can rise above the street rat status. Now, of course, as you probably know, just given the nature of this story and many in real life, there's heavy classism aspects to this. Now, David, of course, fucks it up because his family is poor. He can't afford to purchase the new licensed update for his headset, which honestly is relatable even to the modern day. I remember when I was in school and I was forced to buy a new fucking graphing calculator when I went to a new school, even though the last one worked just fine, so it's certainly not far-fetched. And so he got some weird illegal setup with malware or some shit that fries the whole system. And as a result, he's brought into the principal's office with his mom, which of course she offers to pay all the damage, which she obviously can't afford. And as the two later drive home, there's a gang shootout on the highway, their car flips. Trauma team shows up to save the day, but because neither of them have insurance with them, essentially, they're left to die.
Leave them for the city meat wagon.
Copy that.
What? Mom! Mama! Mom, wake up!
Both of them survive, but David's mom is in critical condition and has to be taken to a back alley clinic, and apparently they haven't paid their rent this month. And so David has to sneak back into his own apartment and discovers that his mom had stolen the military-grade Sandevistan from the cyber psycho in the brain dance. David tries to sell it, but can't get a proper price for it. And the next morning, when he's on his way to school, 3 of the kids corner him, the lead kid being the son of a major Arasaka executive. And as they get into a fight, the kid activates martial arts chipware. Now this is interesting because when I played 2077, and specifically played Judy's side plot, the game acts as if she invented the martial arts chipware. Now, if you played the tabletop, or at least seen a video of somebody talking about all this stuff, you'll know that the chipware technology has existed since at least the 2010s. So are we meant to believe the martial arts chip in Judy's plotline is a completely new thing that's better than all the old stuff? The old stuff was never mentioned by name in the game and is not featured as a gameplay mechanic. So I don't know if this was kind of a plot hole on CD Projekt Red's part in the game, but whatever, I'm getting too deep into this. So of course David gets his ass beat by the bully in over-the-top anime fashion. And as if things couldn't possibly get worse, shortly afterward he gets called by the clinic and told that his mom is dead. And David can't even afford to have a proper funeral for her, and has to choose an automated service to cremate her remains. Then later, back at his apartment, the kid who beat his ass calls him and mocks him further, which pushes David over the edge, and visits his local Ripper doc to implant the Sandevistan inside himself. So of course the following day he returns to the academy, picks a fight with the kid, activates his incredibly overpowered reflex booster, and knocks him on his ass in one punch. Then the next day on the train, he notices a girl he briefly spotted earlier and discovers she's a pickpocket, or pick-neck, and she tries to take his. He catches her with Sandevistan, and she offers him an opportunity to join her crew and steal shit from people, which, of course, he agrees, having no other options.
It's a deal. I'm Lucy, Kay.
Name's David.
After stealing a bunch of shit using Sandevistan, he uses it one time too many, starts bleeding from the nose, passes out, and wakes up in an ambulance. The woman inside tries to steal his shit, and Lucy, the girl, helps him escape. He's then taken back to his Ripper dock and given immunoblockers, a medication that suppresses cyberpsychosis. This is obviously a very major plot point of this show and of the Cyberpunk board game as well, literally built into character creation. And so it's curious that it is basically completely missing from the video game outside of some very minor boss fights that have nothing to do with the overall story. But I'm getting ahead of myself. And so David is taken to Lucy's apartment, and she shows him a brain dance of her dream to visit the moon, and it is a pretty romantic scene.
First time I've shown anyone this.
Oh, really? So, like, why me?
Dunno. Guess it just felt right.
But as he exits the brain dance, it turns out it was a trap, and Lucy set him up as she's here with the rest of her Edgerunner crew because Maine, the leader, was supposed to get that Cyber Psycho Sandevistan. David's mother was going to sell it to get some more money, obviously. And so David offers instead to basically work off the money that he owes him and proves that he can use the Sandevistan without going psycho, which is supposed to be pretty impressive given both that it is military grade and also that David is just a teenager. And it is also emphasized the more cybernetics you get, the more psychotic you become, and you need to take more and more immunoblockers. And now that David has joined the crew, I'm going to basically say this is the end of Act 1. So not a lot has actually happened yet in Act 1. We have a really good setup for David's character and his transformation from a relatively innocent teenage kid to a cybernetically enhanced sociopathic hitman and leader of a gang of mercenaries. Comparing Act 1 of 2077 and Act 1 of Edgerunners isn't exactly fair because we haven't met most of the characters in Edgerunners yet. But I think it's very simple and to the point and well-paced, and there aren't any real notable plot holes, except for one small nagging issue that I'll get to in a moment. And so honestly, I think it's already superior to 2077's. And knowing where 2077's plot goes in Act 2, well, it's hard not to just think about how much better Edgerunners gets, while how much worse 2077's gets as it goes on. To jump ahead a little bit, I just like that Edgerunner's concept is very simple and almost a stereotypical setup for a Cyberpunk 2020 game. A gang of mercs that slowly gain more notoriety, become more cybernetically enhanced, and go on more and more dangerous jobs until they piss off the wrong corporation or get screwed over by one of their allies and die in horrific ways. All the while keeping the main theme of cyberpsychosis, the danger of losing your humanity from slowly replacing hands, legs, your skin, adding guns or blades to various body parts. People replacing their entire bodies. That's obviously gonna fuck up your psyche. And even though David is special and can obviously handle more than the average person, well, you know how the story ends. Now, to be fair to 2077, I'm also going to name my major flaw with Edgerunners, and that being the very concept of David being special. We're told that he can handle way more, let's just call it dysphoria, from enhancing his body as much as humanly possible. The problem with this is, in the original tabletop, this was represented through the empathy stat. So, put shortly, the more humanity you have, the more cybernetics your body can handle while managing to keep sane. Now, David doesn't really represent this at all, I'm gonna be honest. In the very first episode, we're shown multiple times how he doesn't really care about his mother's plights of working herself to the bone to try and provide a better future for her son. And even when she finally dies, we don't even see David cry. No, he's just full of anger and revenge, which if anything, would give him a lower empathy stat. Now, this is still a major fucking step up from the video game, where cyberpsychosis basically doesn't exist, and I'll try not to mention that too many more times, but it does piss me off that they didn't implement that into the story in any way. It's a fucking side quest, and basically a Ubisoft-style side quest where you just wander around to various points in the map, and oh look, it's a fucking mini-boss fight, and that's all you get. And so let's get to Act 2 of Cyberpunk 2077's story. It's once we get to Act 2 that the problems begin to show, as the game's plot shifts and basically becomes a completely new game. It might as well be a sequel to a linear action game, because now the entire thing opens up, the sandbox opens up, you can go everywhere, do all these meaningless side quests and police activities, and subdue all the cyber psychos. And even the characters, it's basically a new cast after this point. Jackie's dead, T-Bug's dead, Dex dies in the first scene of Act 2, Evelyn is effectively dead as we soon find out, and becomes literally dead shortly afterward. The only returning characters are Victor, your Ripper Doc from the beginning, and Misty, Jackie's girlfriend, and they're both at the very end of the game. And I almost forgot about Judy in Act 1, but she's not really an important character to the central plot, she's just a romantic interest for female V. Everyone else is completely different, and even V himself is kind of different. What happened to the dream of making it to the big leagues? It's basically completely sidelined, because now, of course, Johnny Silverhand is in your head, and he's slowly eating up your brain and killing you. The entire Act 2 is basically meeting new characters, unlocking romance options based on your voice and body type. Yes, that's what determines it, by the way. And unlocking 3 more endings. Act 2 begins with a flashback or dream sequence to Johnny Silverhand's past of the time he assaulted Arasaka Tower and blew it up, but during the escape he was captured by Adam Smasher and brought before Saburo Arasaka and put inside an engram, which is obviously the relic you stole from Arasaka and placed inside your head. It turns out the relic can return you from death, but with heavy consequences. After you crawl your way out of the trash, you witness Dex being executed by Takemura.
Now, listen, dog. I have done exactly what you asked. So let's you and me figure this out.
Goro Takemura was Saburo Arasaka's personal bodyguard, and so he takes you captive to testify what you saw that fateful night when Saburo was murdered. But for whatever reason, you get attacked by some chromed out nomad gang, and you pass out and are taken to Victor's clinic, your Ripper Doc. He tells you that the engram of Johnny Silverhand saved you, but is also now stuck in your head, and to make matters even worse, his mind is slowly overwriting your own, and so you're going to die in an undisclosed amount of time. And the next night, Johnny Silverhand starts appearing to you, and actually tries to kill you to get out of your head. And for the rest of the game, he commentates on basically everything that happens, even minor side gigs often have lines from him. So you better get used to hearing Keanu Reeves insult you with a monotone voice.
Only 2 willing to spread their legs for you. Sad.
Go eat a dick, Johnny.
As that's pretty much the only thing he does besides complain how much Night City has changed in 50 years like a fucking boomer. Now this is where the game truly opens up and becomes a sandbox, but of course this is not the video to talk about that stuff, so let's just assume you headed straight to the diner to meet Takemura. V and Takemura come up with 3 different options to pursue, which are the 3 different plots of Act 2 that are running simultaneously. That being to 1, seek an audience with Hanako Arasaka to give your account of what happened that night. 2, to find Anders Hellman, the creator of the relic technology. And 3, to track down Evelyn Parker to see if she can help you. After Takemura leaves, Johnny appears once again.
What do you want?
And I've processed some shit, changed my mind. Don't want you dead anymore.
Go fuck yourself, dickwipe.
and agrees to help you and suggests that he can get an audience with Rogue, despite the fact that he's long dead and basically just a hallucination in your brain, but he figures that Rogue will buy into that shit anyway. Breaking down each individual plotline would take too long, so I'm going to try and condense them as much as possible. We'll start off with Takemura's side. So you meet with Takemura and Hanako's bodyguard, and of course he doesn't buy into any of this shit.
Silence. Not one word more. You will bring death to your door.
And basically says he's gonna kill Takemura the next time he sees him. So he hatches this elaborate plot to jump onto a party float while V takes out all the snipers, and it ends with him kidnapping her. I also want to point out that the boss fight in this mission is the best in the game. In fact, it's the only good boss fight in the game, I would argue, outside of the first time you fight one of these power loader type of things, as it's the only time that you fight someone with similar cybernetics to your own, and Oda is honestly a real challenge. He can very easily kill you if he gets in melee range. Halfway through the fight, he starts cloaking. It's basically what I expected all the boss fights to be in this game, and ideally the mini-bosses would have been like this too, but of course, there's only about 10 enemy types across 60 hours of gameplay, and Atom Smasher, who is very clearly set up as the big final boss, is a fucking pushover. But anyway, as V tells her his story, you get attacked at the apartment and you're given a choice whether or not to save Takemura, and I actually like the guy, I'll be honest, even though he's a corporate stooge, so I save him. And this plot ends basically telling you to investigate the other plot lines before you can end the game.
I am sending you my private line. Contact me if you acquire more information about Soul Killer. And only then.
Now, as for Evelyn Parker's plotline, there's a reason I said she was effectively dead. As you find out later, her brain was fried by the Voodoo Boys, which put her into a coma, and her boss at Clouds, which was essentially a super fancy prostitution service using a personality override chip, well, he did some horrific shit and sold her out to Scavs, who also did more horrific shit to her. And so, when you and Judy team up to finally rescue Evelyn, she takes her own life shortly afterward. Luckily, from Evelyn's memories, you find out who commissioned the heist in the first place, that being the Voodoo Boys, a bunch of super net runners from Haiti that have taken up residence in Pacifica, which is the poorest, trashiest, ghettoist part of the city that was abandoned by corporations before it was finished. Now, the game tries really hard to try and get you to like these guys.
Ou pas de besoin. Gen l'autre qui gen li pi mal.
Peut-être. Mais ça c'est pour ma bonne non pour yon réponse.
While simultaneously getting you to hate them because they stab you in the back after trying to win their trust.
The net pig was right. Voodoos were blowing smoke. As soon as you gave them access to the Netwatch web, they roasted all the agents. And you.
And so when you finally meet up with their boss Brigitte, and she takes you into cyberspace to go to the old internet where AIs roam, you meet Johnny's old girlfriend, Alt Cunningham, who has become some kind of advanced evil AI. Now, they try to make it a bit ambiguous, but nah, she's an evil AI, let's be honest. Unfortunately, Alt can't save you, but she wants to get into Mikoshi, which is a special server inside of Arasaka's headquarters that contains the data for these personality constructs. And there she can split Johnny's personality from your brain. Now you can either help the Voodoo Boys cross through the Black Wall and then leave them in peace, never to talk to them again, or you can enact your revenge for them trying to kill you, or if you sided with Netwatch in the last mission, then you've betrayed them anyway. So 2 out of 3 options lead to you killing them all, never to be seen again. I find it funny that so much focus was put on these characters during one of the E3 presentations, when they're in and out of the game in about an hour, maybe 2 hours tops. And given that they're generally dickheads, you're probably going to wipe them out, so it's kind of completely pointless. The best thing I can say about this subplot is at least it's the one plot thread that connects to the first act of the game. That being said, it's so underdeveloped, much like the other subplots, and just feels completely disconnected from the first few hours of the game, that it doesn't really matter anyway, and just further contributes to the whole theme park feeling that the entire plot of 2077 suffers from. And so we've only got one plotline left. V needs to track down Anders Hellman, and so Johnny suggests finding Rogue, who is still alive after all this time, going from one of the greatest mercenaries in her time to arguably the greatest fixer in Night City. And so you meet her in the afterlife and she sets you up with Pan Am Palmer, the only romance option for straight male V, by the way. But honestly, Pan Am is best girl anyway, yeah, I said it. Judy is completely worthless and insufferable past Act 1. And honestly, her side quest is completely pointless. At least Pan Am's ties into the main game and adds an ending, arguably the best ending. Also, Pan Am's hot, so that helps.
She got a great ass!
So Pan Am's problem is that she left her family, the Aldecaldos, a nomad gang, and she's gonna need their help to help you take out a AV, Aerodyne vehicle, basically a hover car, that Anders Hellman is going to be riding in. But before she helps you, you have to help her out, get her car back, kill some dudes. Over the course of her quest, you resolve her family drama and she rejoins the Aldecaldos. But before then, you hatch a plan to set off an EMP, which hits the vehicle, and unfortunately, before you can make it to the crash site, Pan Am's friends make it to the scene first. One of them gets killed, the other one you manage to save luckily, but you do get a hold of Anders Hellman and interrogate him. Unfortunately, he tells you all hope is lost.
I'm afraid I have bad news. Your neural network has completely deteriorated. It can no longer function independently of the chip.
And that's pretty much the end of this plotline. Now, before we get to the second act of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I do want to talk about the main characters really quick, as I believe this is another major source of missed potential with Cyberpunk 2077. So of course I've already talked about V, but his personality does shift a little bit into Act 2. Now of course, due to the abundance of dialogue choices, many of which are completely meaningless, you can sort of adjust what type of personality V actually has, whether they're a nice person and understanding and willing to help people, or more of an asshole, just cares about getting his money for each gig. At the end of the day, once again, this game reflects Fallout 4 in that many of the dialogue options lead toward the same conclusion, with the only meaningful ones being, yes, I want to do this, or no, I do not. Even skill checks pretty much just boil down to skipping a step of the quest. But ultimately, V's motivations and general personality and all that stuff really doesn't matter at all, because starting with Act 2, you're slowly dying. And so, that throws anything else out the window. Continuing Jackie's dream of becoming the greatest merc in the world might as well have never happened.
Got no idea where I'm going. Be a living legend. That's all I wanted. Feels like I'm barely surviving.
One of the endings, technically two, does explore this idea, albeit briefly, but for the most part this has become a completely different game at this point, as I've already said. And to briefly touch on something else, and I promise I won't go off on a long tangent about this, it is an absolutely awful fucking idea to make a sandbox game or open world game and have the main quest line have any sense of urgency. Because the whole point of games like this is that you can go off and do whatever the hell you feel like doing at the time, and Cyberpunk 2077 is full of various side quests and one-off characters and mini stories that have no connection to the main plotline that are interesting, but this is where ludonarrative dissonance pokes its head. We are led to believe that V is dying, and we should be spending every waking moment in this game fighting to save your brain. In fact, even though it would piss off a shit ton of people, it would actually make sense if you could get a good ending if you rush your way through the main plotline of the game, ignoring all side quests. Now that would be horrible game design, but it would make for an interesting secret ending, for sure. But there's really nothing stopping you from completing 99% of all the content before you show up at Embers to pick your ending. And how long you take has no effect on anything. So it's completely fucking pointless, and I'm not going to pretend CD Projekt Red are the only ones who've done this. In fact, Bethesda's done this with almost all of their games. As for our other main character, we of course have Johnny Silverhand, who replaces Jackie. And I kinda like him, kinda hate him at the same time. On the one hand, I can respect having a major character in your game be a complete asshole. I mean, this dude is just an absolute shithead.
You're a walking corpse. Should just wait till your mind shrivels to nothing and frees up space for me.
I guess there's some implications that he has a heart of gold underneath several layers of cynicism and arrogance, and he truly does care for his girlfriend, Alt Cunningham, even though it's implied that he cheated on her several times, so figure that one out, I don't know. Then we have Goro Takemura, who, put quite simply, is the stereotypical samurai. He serves his master, that being Arasaka itself, but he's also incredibly loyal and a friend to V, but if you betray the company, as you should because it's a cyberpunk story, of course the corporation is evil and will betray you, well then he's pissed and will never forgive you. Despite being a fairly one-note character, I will give him credit that he probably has the only legitimately interesting political discussion in the game that is obviously meant to parallel debates around the dangers of late-stage capitalism.
Wasn't judging you.
Untrue. You oppose the corporations, their order, their world, in a mindless way, yet you offer no worthy alternative.
Take a look around. It's here. Your corporate world in its glorious splendor.
You show me filthy streets as if no other world exists, as if nothing else is possible. What of the millions who work for Arasaka and receive stability?
And cheap 11 slum rats? They're there, scraping scraps out of scop tins. Corpse decided that too.
Now, I think you guys already know how I feel about this, but this isn't meant to be like a politics breakdown type of video. Let me just say that despite the fact I am vehemently anti-communist and socialist, that doesn't mean that I'm a libertarian. I definitely am not. And although somewhat exaggerated, there's a lot of parallels between the cyberpunk setting and real life. And as tempting as it is, I'm not going to talk about in detail the irony of CD Projekt Red creating a game criticizing mega corporations when just recently they've said they're going to implement an ESG system into their games, meaning wokeness and diversity, to get funding from a firm that shall not be named, but I think you can figure it out on your own. But to get back to Takemura, I think he would have made a great buddy character for V, and he does for the few scenes that he is in the game and actually talks to you, but at no point does he actually fight alongside V, and like I already mentioned, there is no companion system in the game, so it just feels like more wasted potential. Judy is a lesbian, and so if you're like me and play a male V, her personality does not matter after this point. And then we have Pan Am Palmer, aka Best Girl. Has a strong personality, loyal, will tell it to you straight every time, and maybe could be a little on the bitchy side, but she's clearly attracted to V and embarrassed and doesn't want to get too attached because she's afraid of losing somebody else or fucking up the relationship. So honestly, all great qualities. I really have no complaints here. And I think her representing the nomad lifestyle is great because one of the main takeaways from this story, at least if you pick her ending, is that the nomad lifestyle, even though you're living out in the wasteland with very few resources, struggling to survive, is much better than the shithole that is Night City, because at least you have family and friends who care about you, which actually is a pretty good message for Cyberpunk.
I mean, let's face it, V. My life was in a million pieces. You broke it into a million more. But sometimes it's only then that you can piece it together again.
And then finally in the main cast we have Rogue, who I barely mentioned because most of her relevance is in side quests and in the ending. Rogue was Johnny's other lover. Well, okay, one of many. She's a badass solo, aka a combat specialist in the universe of Cyberpunk, a hitman if you will. And she cares about Johnny so much that she helped him rescue his other girlfriend, essentially. And in 2077, obviously, she's much older, she's seen it all, but at the same time, she's bored of being a fixer, she wants to be back in the action. You can even go on a date with her, and which is kind of weird given she's over 80 years old. But still, another good character. I enjoyed the awkward gilf scenes.
Tried so hard to pretend nothing's changed. To pretend I'm the same Rogue you knew. Actually managed to fool myself for a little. Get back on my own.
And her ending is the only other decent one, not including the secret ending. And so, of course, there's a shit ton of other characters across the game. There's 2 other love interests, being River Ward, the detective, and Carrie Eurodyne, Johnny's old best friend, which he's gay, so if you're male V, he can be your gay romance, which is extremely awkward given Johnny's in your fucking head. This is very quickly delving into fanfiction territory. This is gonna sound like a weird criticism, but my problem with Cyberpunk's cast overall is it just doesn't fit the tone of Cyberpunk in my head. Now you're probably wondering, what do I mean by that? Well, all it takes is one look at the Cyberpunk 2020 rulebook, specifically at the character backgrounds or classes, to know what I mean. Rocker boys, solos, techies, cops, corporates, fixers, nomads. These are the essence of what is Cyberpunk. A group of these characters form a party and they go out and they do dangerous missions, right? The problem is, in the year 2077, a bunch of these roles have diminished, or they just have no relevance to the plot of this game. I'm going to stop myself here from listing off a bunch of things again. The point of what I'm trying to get at is that Cyberpunk 2020 had a certain retro future style to it. I find it hard to believe that even in the 90s, people thought this is what the future would be. It's way too stylized, but in a good way. Now, 2077 has lost a lot of that soul. It's definitely still a cyberpunk future. It has that late stage capitalism trash type of vibe to it, but the tone is all wrong. Everything is supposed to be over the top and exaggerated, including the characters, which is what leads me into Cyberpunk Edgerunners, as it succeeds at pulling this off extraordinarily well. Now, this could be due to the fact that it is anime, and it's very easy for anime to exaggerate things, but regardless of what the reason is, it doesn't really matter. It pulls it off perfectly. Maine's gang of Edgerunners is legitimately a believable party of characters from this setting, and the fact that there is no parallel in the video game to this is so disappointing to me. It's honestly more than disappointing, it's infuriating. I had a vibe in my head, something that was clearly expressed by the art in these books, and that's just not represented here. I understand it's 57 years in the future, and Night City got destroyed in a nuclear explosion, so obviously things are not going to be the same, but when you're adapting a source material to another medium, especially a medium much more popular than the original, you need to ensure that the soul of the IP is transferred into this new medium. Cyberpunk 2077 does not feel like Cyberpunk 2020, it just doesn't. And that is a huge fucking problem. And while I promise not to talk about it in this video, I also want to pay lip service to the fact that they didn't transfer the gameplay at all either. How do you go from a tabletop RPG with all sorts of mechanics and intricacies and builds and pure creativity and how you can create your character, to this soulless action-adventure with light RPG mechanics and no player choice, very limited cybernetics, and oh so much more things I could complain about, but I'm not going to in this video. And so before I go off on yet another tangent, let's talk about Act 2 of Cyberpunk Edgerunners' story. What's interesting about Edgerunners Act 2 is that it reflects a lot of real-world gang culture, at least introducing kids into the lifestyle and desensitizing them to the horrible things that they often have to do. David starts off as a glorified pickpocket, but quickly becomes a getaway driver as his first major gig goes south. We're then shown a montage of him hanging out with Lucy and going on increasingly more dangerous jobs, but managing to avoid actually having to kill anybody, and even replaces his lungs to keep up with Lucy on their nightly runs. And one night after hanging out with the gang, Pilar, aka Rebecca's brother, antagonizes a cyber psycho and gets his head blown off right in front of them. And so David activates Sandevistan and kills the cyber psycho to save Lucy from danger. And this is the moment that he truly loses his innocence and becomes a real edge runner and sets him on the path to eventual cyber psychosis. Luckily in the next scene we actually get a pretty romantic moment between him and Lucy.
Gonna take you there myself, fly you to the moon. That's a promise.
It's weird that these highly exaggerated characters feel more down to earth than the normalized ones in 2077. The next major gig sees the gang try and gain leverage against Tanaka, the Arasaka executive that sees potential in David for his unique resistance to cyberpsychosis and is also the father of the bully that David beat the shit out of. Shows how much the Corpos care for their children. And so to gain this leverage, they need to kidnap a brain dance editor who basically creates snuff films and weird fetish crap. But unfortunately, the man quite literally has eyes in the back of his head, or at least a camera, and fries David and kidnaps him, and subjects him to torture in a brain dance where he goes cyber psycho, and kills a bunch of cops, which no doubt scars him, and is obviously some foreshadowing for the end of the show. Of course, the gang comes to save the day. They defeat some conveniently bulletproof drones, and they use the braindance editor to draw out Tanaka. The gang quickly defeats him in a fight, but the braindance editor dies. And of course, he has Trauma Team Platinum coverage, meaning they're gonna be there any minute. So the gang quickly kidnaps Tanaka. In the next episode, we see Maine is starting to go cyber psycho, and of course, just like a drug addict, he refuses to remove any of his cybernetics to ease up the wearing down of his humanity.
Fuck off! Ain't nobody gonna set my limits but me!
Meanwhile, Kiwi is trying to hack into Tanaka's brain to get some Arasaka secrets, and Maine goes psycho for a second and punches her faceplate off, and we get to see a good view of just how normalized being a cyborg is in the future. Even with how desensitized I am, it still slightly disturbed me. And so Falco and Nomad, who I guess at some point started hanging out with them, knocks Maine out. And so David tries to confront Maine, and he just brushes him off and threatens him. He's clearly too far gone at this point. And Lucy needs some encouragement from David to hack into Tanaka's brain, and it's implied she has some vendetta against Arasaka. And so she goes into his brain, eventually discovers the secret information that basically they're going to use David as a guinea pig because of his unique resistance to cyberpsychosis. Unfortunately, Tanaka dies, and the jammer they have is fried as well, which means Trauma Team now has their location. David and Lucy escape, and Lucy tells him that there was no information in Tanaka's brain, and of course David wants to be a big damn hero, and so goes back in to try and save his friends. Unfortunately, they're in a shootout with both the cops and Trauma Team, so it's pretty much just a matter of time before they're dead. Dorio dies first before David even manages to arrive, and of course Maine goes full cyber psycho at this point. It's actually pretty impressive. He manages to take out the entire squad of Trauma Team, and Max Tack is about to arrive. David tries to convince him to go, but despite his cyberpsychosis, Maine realizes this is his last stop.
No more running for me, dog. Reaper's finally calling my name.
And creates a fucking funeral pyre out of explosive canisters for Dorio. Where the hell did he even get that many canisters? Whatever, rule of cool, I guess. David wants to fight to the death with him as well, but Maine tells him to keep on running and blows up the canisters just as Max Tack arrive. David, of course, makes it out on time and sheds one final tear. And that's pretty much the end of Act 2. Now, given this is a TV show, it doesn't really follow a proper 3-act structure, but this will do for now. I'd say most of the characters in this show are pretty one-note. David is the naive shonen protagonist who'll do anything to protect his friends. Lucy is the cold, distant tsundere who grows to love David over the course of the story. Rebecca is the cyber lolly that the entire internet wants to plow, apparently. And yeah, okay, she's not technically a lolly, but don't pretend the lolly aesthetic is not the reason you want to bone her, alright? Though I'm sure her psychotic, feisty personality and romantic feelings for David, as we learn later, are contributing factors. Maine is the muscle, Dorio is the muscle but female, Pilar is the crazy one, and Kiwi is the stoic nihilist. They don't really get any more complexity than that, which is completely fine. You don't necessarily need to have complex characters to have enjoyable characters, right? All of them feel like proper cyberpunk archetypes. And on top of that, they're just really solid character designs. It follows a very simple principle of giving all the characters a different silhouette. They all have different builds and heights, so they're very easy to distinguish from one another. So it just works out perfectly. Now, if you compare this to Cyberpunk, yeah, the characters do look distinct, V obviously doesn't really have a style other than wearing whatever trash has the highest numbers on the street, and I'm glad that finally, after almost 2 fucking years, they added transmog. I don't know why it took that long. But obviously Jackie looks different from Johnny, looks different from Panam, looks different from Judy, but they're all far more toned down in personality with the exception of Johnny. And again, this is kind of a vague criticism, but I just feel like the rest of the cast is a little bit too normal, with the exception of V himself. Honestly, most of V's dialogue is pretty well written. He really feels like a street kid.
I look like either of those to you? Had to look the menu here and no. You don't look a thing like these meat puppets. More like a Joy Boy's cum rag.
Now, if you pick Corpo, it doesn't fucking fit at all, but Nomad, you could probably stretch it to work. And speaking of V, I guess now's as good a time as ever to compare the 2 main protagonists of these shows. They have a surprising amount of parallels, and this is actually even addressed in the latest update for the game to tie in with the show. So of course, both V and David are street kids who come from nothing, who want to become legendary mercenaries, or actually, they don't. They have no real motivations of their own, and they're carrying on someone else's dream. In V's case, it's Jackie's, and in David's case, it's Maine's. Both of them end up with no family left, but discover a new one. In David's case, it's Maine's gang, and in V's, it's the Aldecaldos, if you decide to go with that ending. They both have superhuman resistance to cyberpsychosis, and if you pick Rogue's ending and have Johnny Silverhand removed from your brain, the epilogue is eerily similar to the last couple episodes of Edgerunners, even down to sharing the same apartment. So what exactly is the purpose of this comparison, you might be wondering? Well, I guess what I'm really doing is pointing out that the protagonist is not necessarily the problem with 2077, but more just the fact that you don't actually get to make a character. V is a pre-made character, but he is a good one for the story. So the problem is the story itself and not necessarily him as a character. Now the rest of the cast is an issue for what I've already mentioned, but obviously they had a solid blueprint here for a protagonist. I'll also say, even though it really doesn't need to be said, you can just watch the show for yourself, but the art is fantastic. I'd heard of Studio Trigger before, but I'm not really like an anime guy. So now that I've seen this for myself, yeah, they're fucking awesome. The art design is just fantastic, and using parts of Night City from the game, and using the exact guns and cyberware from the game as well is just awesome little attentions to detail there. And the gore, man, I just love the gore. There's so much gore. So yeah, it's safe to say I really enjoyed Act 2 as well. So now it's finally time to get to the endings of 2077 and Edgerunners. But before I go over the endings, let's talk about the context. So you go meet Hanako at Embers. She essentially gives you an option to sell out to Arasaka and they'll take care of you. But if you've learned anything over the course of this game or know anything at all about Cyberpunk as a genre, you know that siding with the Corpo is always the worst possible choice. Johnny wants you to use the medicine that allows him to take over your body temporarily so he can team up with Rogue to assault Arasaka Tower one final time. Afterward, V collapses in the elevator, and Johnny Silverhand takes over your body and takes you to Victor's clinic. Now, at this point in the game, you've probably forgotten who Victor or Misty even are, because it's been probably at least 20 hours of gameplay since the last time you've seen them. But regardless, Vic tries to tell you that you've got a choice, you're at a crossroads here, you've run out of time. And so Misty takes you up to the rooftop where her and Jackie used to hang out and figure shit out. And fittingly, there's an advertisement for the Secure Your Soul program in the background. And this is where you figure you have a handful of options. But because there's so many, I will briefly summarize the ones that don't really matter. That being 1, the suicide ending, which is completely pointless. You're telling me you're gonna play at least 20 hours of gameplay, likely over 40, just to take your own life? Honestly, on some strange level, I actually kind of respect it, because no matter what choice V chooses, outside of the secret ending, which we'll get to in a second, V is going to end up getting some of his new friends killed. So, instead of causing grief on everyone else, he can just choose to end it all, and it's actually pretty sad, even though it's the shortest ending by far.
You know, it really is beautiful.
nice working with you, V.
Yeah. With you too, Johnny.
Then we have the Arasaka ending, the other bad ending. Now this one actually drags on way too fucking long. So the very short version is, you have to rescue Hanako from house arrest. Then you go to testify against Yorinobu at Arasaka Tower. You learn that Saburo is still alive, kind of. He's an engram, right? A personality construct. So it's not really him, it's a clone of him. And so he helps testify with you and intimidates all the current Arasaka executives. Then the building goes into lockdown as Yorinobu attacks. You fight your way through a shit ton of guys. Atom Smasher is loyal to him apparently, and so you beat his ass into the ground. What a fucking disappointment, especially when you see Edgerunners do him justice. And you learn that Yorinobu's whole motivation is still the same since 2020, in that he has daddy issues. All of this was done to take down his father. It's why he killed him, it's why he sabotaged his company, as you see in this scene, and after all that, he still failed. V then passes out in the elevator and wakes up inside Mikoshi. Johnny is obviously incredibly disappointed in you.
Uncanny. Here I stand, looking at an old pic of myself back in the day. Rogue, Alt, others. Abandoned them all. And now here's you, abandoning me. Abandoning yourself.
And like they imply earlier in the game, the engram is slowly blending the two personalities, and so, yeah, you're effectively Johnny now. Now this is where the writing goes to shit. You wake up, the relic has been removed from your brain, Johnny's gone, and over the course of the next 30 fucking minutes, might as well be a glorified cutscene, you witness how V's brain is not healing despite the best medical care in the world, and with all this hyper-advanced fucking technology, they couldn't figure out how to heal your brain. And to add insult to injury, instead of Yorinobu being executed, Saburo's engram was placed inside his own son and has now taken over his body. Eventually, Takemura comes to visit you and tells you you have two options. You can either have an engram made of your consciousness and stored in Mikoshi until they can find you a body, or you can go back to Earth and live out the rest of your days. And yeah, that's it. This entire fucking ending sucks absolute ass. Let's say they can actually heal your brain and it's the only ending where your brain recovers, right? But the cost is you become another corporate stooge like Atom Smasher or Takemura. That would actually give you something to think about, right? Instead, they just made this so black and white and so over the top, and so many development resources were wasted on this mission. It honestly pisses me off in so many levels. Instead of being deep in any way, it just drives it home over and over again that you obviously made the bad choice, and everyone knew before you even picked this option that it was the bad ending, so it's fucking pointless. So let's just move on. The second path you can choose is Panam's side of things. Over the course of her quests, you have truly become an Aldecaldo, even getting your own jacket here. And so it's the duty of a nomad to help out anybody from their family, and so Saul and Panam hatch a plan to drill under Arasaka Tower, which would be the shortest path to Mikoshi. And so, as you'll no doubt remember, earlier in her missions, the Aldecaldos acquired a hover tank, which you used to assault a base with a giant drill guarded by Militech. Over the course of the mission, a bunch of Aldecaldos die, but eventually V, Panam, and Saul drill their way into the basement of Arasaka Tower, and you quickly slot in AI Alt Cunningham, who turns all of the robots on the Arasaka employees inside, making it very easy to make your way to Mikoshi. Now, of course, right before you reach it, Atom Smasher shows up again and kills Saul, but you very quickly and easily avenge his death and make your way inside Mikoshi. You meet Johnny inside, who actually compliments you for once.
Devised a solid plan and pulled it off. That's you. Well done.
I'm sorry. Not sure I quite caught that.
Then wash out your ears, dumbass.
But then Alt shows up and drops a fucking bomb on you that as soon as you went into Mikoshi, she activated Soul Killer, meaning that V just died. Now again, it's hard to not reference Soma here, but it's the exact same concept. The original V is dead. From now on, you're a personality construct of him, which she had to create to separate yours and Johnny's psyches. And now she can just put you back into the body. Now there's another major problem. V's brain is too damaged to accept V's personality anymore, and can only accept Johnny's because the body recognizes it as Johnny's body now. And so once again, you have two choices. You can either live out the rest of your days with Panam and what's left of the Aldecaldos, or you can give Johnny the body. Obviously, giving Johnny the body is another bad ending, and the ending itself really fucking sucks. It's my second least favorite one. It's really sad when the self-deletion ending is only the third worst ending in your game. And so after obviously reloading a save, you pick the Panam ending and get what I argue to be the best ending in the game. You ride off with Panam into the sunset, sitting on the roof of the Basilisk after leaving Night City, and stare off into the stars as V finally lets go of his bullet necklace.
Well?
It's perfect. All great, Panam. We're going home.
Honestly, I think it's the perfect ending because it kind of reflects how I feel about cities in real life. They're fucking shitholes full of crime and poverty and horrible political opinions. And so V chooses his one family, his only real family at this point, except for arguably Victor and Misty and Jackie's mom, but those are really his only connections left in Night City. The Aldecaldos are his real family now. And while I'd say it's naively optimistic, you could argue that somewhere in the world there's somebody who can fix V's brain. And this is also the only ending where you get to be with Panam, so yeah, that really sells it for me. So now we get to the final path, Rogue's plan to assault Arasaka with Johnny. So for this ending, you decide to take the pills that lets Johnny take over your body, and he meets up with Rogue at the afterlife to hatch a plan to attack Arasaka Tower like they did over 50 years ago, reflecting the two flashback sequences you get over the course of the game. And shortly afterward, Johnny, Rogue, and Wayland's son travel in an Aerodyne vehicle up to Arasaka Tower. They take out a satellite in the sky to shut down Arasaka's communications, but the air defenses still end up hitting the AV, and so they have to crash into one of the upper floors. The trio fight their way to the security room, where Johnny implants Alt, who once again kills all the employees inside. And so you make your way to fight Atom Smasher yet again, and Rogue sacrifices herself to take out just 20% of his health, and you once again kick his ass. And in a nice little spin on things this time, you enter Mikoshi as Johnny and speak to yourself, V, which only further solidifies my point that V is a predetermined character, as now you pick Johnny's dialogue options instead of his. The conversation is largely the same as last time, you don't really learn anything new, and you're given the same choices as last time as well. So of course you're going to pick V again, and we get a time skip, and now V is living in a luxurious apartment and has become the legendary edge runner that Jackie always wanted to be. Now of course if you have a romantic interest, she's here at the apartment as well. As you already know, I picked Panam. She tells you she's leaving because she can't stand to see you slowly die doing increasingly more dangerous missions. I think you're already connecting the dots in your head to the ending of Edgerunners right now. Unfortunately, there is no option here to leave with her to live out the rest of your days with the Aldecaldos like the other ending, so she just leaves. And so you make your way to the afterlife, and you meet with some big shot client to do the next impossible mission, which is a heist at the Crystal Palace, a space station. And so the game cuts to V in a spaceship, and ends with him drifting off toward the station. Now, according to recent rumors, the expansion Phantom Liberty will not only be completing the rest of Pacifica, but will also be including the Crystal Palace as a location, which I think you can already see the obvious problem with this. It's already been confirmed that Keanu Reeves is reprising his role as Johnny Silverhand, which means that the DLC is not going to take place after the ending Broken Steel style, which completely invalidates the original recording I had placed right here. So if this is all true, I guess that means this ending is non-canon? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But before we get to Edgerunners, I still have to talk about the secret ending. If you respond to Johnny positively when you find his grave in one of the side quests, then you've unlocked the secret ending, which, much like Far Cry, involves just sitting at the choice screen for several minutes until suddenly Johnny suggests you should assault Arasaka Tower by yourself.
If I gotta die, rather fall into my grave, gun in hand and on fire, and not drag anyone down with me.
Huh. You just discovered what it takes to become a legend. Grab your eye. Let's mobilize.
In the most straightforward way, with no plan whatsoever, just stroll in the front door and shoot your way to Mikoshi. The special condition of this ending being that all the enemies are max level. And if you die at any point during this mission, you get the suicide ending because it's effectively the same thing. Now, believe it or not, I actually did this in one try because this game is very easy to break, but it still felt like a pretty intense challenge because you can die in 3 hits to pretty much any individual enemy. And your maximum health actually slowly depletes over the course of this mission, which I suppose is supposed to represent the relic slowly killing you. So eventually you make your way to Atom Smasher once again, and this is probably the closest thing to a challenge you'll ever get from him because you're probably down to half maximum health at this point, and he's on the same level as you, so he takes a lot more hits to kill. But ultimately, still not really that challenging. So you make your way to Mikoshi, and it's the exact same scene as when you're with Panam, but unlike Panam's, if you choose V, it's the same ending as Johnny's ending. Except one significant difference, that being Rogue is actually alive in the epilogue. They actually recorded extra lines of dialogue just for this ending that probably less than 5% of the people who touch this game will ever see.
This place was Jackie's dream. He wanted to work with fixers like you, legends. Wanted everybody at the Afterlife to know our names. Major Leagues, V. That's the place to be, the Major Leagues.
Well, consider his dream fulfilled.
Now, before I criticize these endings, I do want to talk about Cyberpunk Edgerunners Act 3. Unfortunately, there's 4 episodes left in what I've deemed as Act 3, so I'm going to heavily condense these as this video is already extraordinarily long. So Act 3 begins with a time skip, and David has fully borged out. He has converted almost his entire body into cybernetics and gained a full foot in height, and is much more muscular looking. Rebecca has started hanging out with the main crew again, and at some point she fell for David, so now there's kind of a love triangle thing going on, but luckily there's only implications. This isn't some CW level melodrama. It is pretty cute though. And so the plot spices up when a major fixer in Night City Faraday, and notably he's voiced by Giancarlo Esposito.
I'm afraid not, but good things come to those who act.
Which is kind of weird because the dude's white, but honestly I don't really fucking care that much. He has a cool voice. Basically, he tells David that he wants Lucy back in the crew since she managed to crack through Arasaka's firewall, and he wants David to prove himself as the new leader of the gang. Afterward, we see David is in the apartment that V has in the Rogue Path ending. Obviously, he's made it as a big shot in Night City at this point, and he tries to convince Lucy to rejoin the crew. Unfortunately, she says she still needs time. And so, instead, she tells her backstory as a prodigy netrunner child who worked with Arasaka, and all of these prodigies were sent into the old net, and one by one they were killed by the AI there, maybe even by Alt Cunningham. And so Lucy and a few other survivors ran away, never to return. We find out at the end of the episode that what Lucy has been doing all this time is tracking down all the people connected to Tanaka who knew about David, and so she's killing them to protect him. Then in the next episode, we see David finally kill some quote-unquote innocent people, which might be a bit of a stretch here on the show's part, but basically, it's to show us the beginning of his decline into cyberpsychosis. And about half the episode is spent on this decline. Plot B shows Faraday betraying Militech and eventually betraying the gang at large by siding with Arasaka, as he agrees to eliminate anyone who knows about the Cyber Skeleton, which is an experimental full-body conversion kit that turns one man into an army. And he also agrees to take down Lucy. Meanwhile, David's Ripper Doc notices that he's starting to have symptoms of cyberpsychosis, and so David threatens him to give him stronger meds. Eventually, the Ripper Doc complies, and he's given 9 times the recommended dosage. Lucy confronts him outside, just like Dorio confronted Maine a few episodes back. But of course, David is following in Maine's footsteps in every way, and so makes the exact same mistake. He refuses to back off, and explains his trauma around killing the innocent Arasaka techie. Lucy leaves as she receives the location of another Arasaka netrunner, but it's a trap to capture her, as Kiwi has betrayed the team and is now working with Faraday. So next episode, David and the rest of the crew have to hit the convoy with the cyber skeleton on it. There's a huge action scene here that, while good, the fucking physics make no sense whatsoever. The vehicles might as well be on the moon as they flip through the sky. I don't know, it's kind of stupid, a little over the top for my taste. I guess it comes with the territory of anime. We also learned during this scene that Becca actually has to help David take an insane amount of fucking meds, and I kind of feel bad for her at this part.
Rebecca?
Puppy dog eyes! Knew I'm a sucker for him, didn't ya?
She's basically the third wheel in this relationship and is just being abused. The gang then learns that the truck is unmanned, so they flip it using a tow hook and some Sandevistan magic to knock it into the ravine. They climb inside, see the technology, and a small army of Militech goons show up. And so David has no choice but to put on the thing, which is obviously going to drive him to be cyber psycho. Meanwhile, Lucy escapes Faraday's clutches, but he has a failsafe in place that shuts her down, which ironically encourages David to put on the cyber skeleton even more so that he can save her. And of course, this rig is cartoonishly overpowered combined with his Sandevistan. He wipes out the Militech convoy with very little trouble. Now you're gonna notice another problem here. The power scaling is completely fucked, because this show really expects us to believe that David can take out tanks and missile carriers and countless armored vehicles with no trouble, but Atom Smasher can whoop his ass. It just makes no fucking sense. We're getting into like DBZ power level territory. It might seem like a nitpick, but honestly, this type of shit happens with anime all the time. So now we're in the final episode, and it's just one giant action scene, while Falco, Becca, and David rip through the streets of Night City, getting shot in all directions by Militech goons, and once again, the vehicle physics are fucking stupid. Faraday is taking Lucy to some location, and he calls Kiwi to meet up with her before getting paid, and foolishly, she agrees even though it's so obviously a trap, and she's going to be killed. Back with David and Rebecca, we get a really sad moment where she realizes that David's mind is finally gone.
You're right, Mom. I know I can. I'll do my best. You got my word. Arasaka all the way to the top.
All right, David. Let's go to the top then.
Then Kiwi gets betrayed and shot, but she manages to escape long enough to contact her old crew and give them Faraday's location as she's bleeding out next to a dumpster. Faraday tries to take refuge in Arasaka Tower, but of course David catches up to him, kills pretty much all of them inside except Atom Smasher and Faraday himself. And then he uses his weird gravity power shit and chops his leg off somehow. But Trauma Team shows up, which distracts David just long enough for Adam to get a free shot in, and so he activates Sandevistan, finishes off Faraday and Trauma Team, and rescues Lucy. But turns out Atom Smasher also has Sandevistan, which he doesn't have in the game. Interesting. As David flies out one of the higher floors, Lucy brings him back from the brink of cyberpsychosis for just a moment, and she tries to explain to him that she knew he would do this, and if he did, he would die. And he says he wants to protect her, but all Lucy really wanted was both of them to leave Night City and this whole life behind, and live together and be happy and all that sappy romantic shit. When they reach the ground, Rebecca is waiting for them, and like a complete moron, stands still firing straight upward as Atom Smasher quite literally smashes her to death. Then Atom Smasher beats the shit out of David, eventually killing him. It's pretty one-sided. Again, this is just fucking stupid. My suspense of disbelief is completely destroyed. The cyber skeleton could smash into armored vehicles and tanks completely fine, yet Atom Smasher can tear it apart with his bare hands. It doesn't make any fucking sense. I understand that David can't beat him here because this takes place before Cyberpunk 2077, but honestly, this is just kind of bad writing. A lot of these last couple episodes have very over-the-top anime scenes that just jump the shark. I suppose on some level you can argue that these are just over-dramatized versions of what really happened in-universe, but there's no reconciling that Atom Smasher defeats David basically unscathed. I like the concept of David going out in a blaze of glory like all Edgerunners are supposed to, but they just didn't really handle this part all that well. And so now we cut to the epilogue where Lucy has finally made it to the moon, her supposed dream, but she's still not happy until she has a hallucination or just pictures David there and what he would say, and has a fleeting moment of happiness. A rather fitting melancholy ending for a cyberpunk story. Do I even need to tell you which has the better ending here? I probably didn't even have to talk about the endings. The whole point of the problem with Cyberpunk 2077's story is that it's two different stories. You can see the parallels without me bringing them up between Act 1 of Cyberpunk's and Edgerunner's story. They're very similar. The tale of some street trash turned mercenary who gets in over his head, takes a job that's too big that screws over some mega corporation, and dies as a result. Incredibly basic, pretty stereotypical, especially for the setting, but exactly what we needed from a direct adaptation of a tabletop pen and paper RPG. Because people don't fucking know what Cyberpunk 2020 is, or if they do, they don't really understand it. So when you finally get the opportunity to put in hundreds of millions of dollars into a huge AAA budget adaptation, it needs to be a direct translation of what made Cyberpunk great. And that's exactly what Edgerunners does. It doesn't really push any boundaries, but it has characters that we care about, even though they're not particularly deep or complex, but they don't have to be because they're likable inherently for their character design and their over-the-top personalities, which is exactly what 2077 should have had. Instead, a lot of these characters look unique or diverse, but personality-wise, they're just like any normal fucking person, which is boring. I don't understand how CDPR sort of fucked up the point this bad, and again, it comes down to the quote-unquote theory, though I doubt it's a theory, I'm sure it's fact, that once they got Keanu Reeves on board, they completely rewrote 2/3 of the story to make it all about him to sell the game. It was a fucking marketing stunt, because I've already said it like 3 times this video, but Act 1 and Act 2 are completely different fucking stories. I'm not going to pretend that personality constructs can't be a cyberpunk story concept, but it shouldn't have been an adaptation of the Cyberpunk IP. Cyberpunk needed way stronger characters who were present throughout the entire story, people to bounce V off of, instead of just talking to random assholes for like a few lines and moving on to the next random asshole. Instead, the only character that V interacts with regularly is Keanu Reeves in your fucking brain, which is an okay idea, I don't hate it, but it shouldn't have been what the story was about. It should have just been a bunch of linear story missions with increasingly escalating stakes and danger, and eventually V gets in over his head and dies, or maybe if you want a slightly happier ending, maybe just Jackie and your other friends die and V's the only survivor or something. and then have an evil ending where you sell out to the corpo and betray your friends. Was that so fucking hard? No, it really wasn't. And it goes without saying, but you need to take more inspirations, and I mean not just visually, because there's plenty of visual references to other Cyberpunk media in the game, but you need to take inspiration from the tone and story of all the other famous Cyberpunk stories, of which there are many. Blade Runner, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, Johnny Mnemonic, Fifth Element. The original Judge Dredd comics, believe it or not, were a major inspiration for many of this setting's ideas. Even with video games, you have Deus Ex, considered to be one of the greatest games of all time, and more recently, Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, which have augmentations that are much more impactful gameplay-wise and more interesting, and give you a somewhat unique playstyle other than slowing down time and double jumping around, gunning people at super speed, which gets old eventually. And I'm sure even just in your head you thought of a bunch of other Cyberpunk examples. The point is, so much media has existed in this genre over the past 40 years. By the way, if you want to know the history of the genre, I would highly recommend checking out Indigo Gaming's Cyberpunk documentary. It covers all of the major influences on the genre and likely the Cyberpunk 2020 tabletop game, and will give you a pretty good idea of what this game should have looked like, or at least what the story should have been about. I know plenty of other people have done this by now, but I just want to show you the image of the 6 promises that CD Projekt Red wanted to fulfill for this game all the way back in 2013. 1. A mature RPG for mature up audiences, realistic and brutal, set in a rich futuristic world. The only part of this I have a problem with is RPG, as they themselves have listed it as an action-adventure game instead, but we'll let this one slide. 2. Gripping, non-linear story filled with life and detail. Wrong. It is absolutely a linear story. It just branches into 3 paths that then converge back on the ending, and then you just choose your flavor. Some people are going to argue semantics on this one, but I figure it is still linear because there are no player choices, except for unlocking the secret ending. The only other choices that matter are right at the end of the game. 3. Advanced RPG mechanics based on pen and paper RPG system. Absolutely fucking not. I'm not going to cover in this video, but no. Number 4, varied selection of different character classes. Also wrong. There's basically only 2 classes. Either you go full solo with a bit of crafting on the side, or you're a sneaky hacker. That's it. 5, gigantic arsenal of weapons, upgrades, implants, and cool high-tech toys. Weapons, yes. Upgrades, debatable. Implants, absolutely fucking not. There's only like 7 implants in the game that even change how your character plays, and 4 out of 7 are on your arms. And number 6, set new standard in the futuristic RPG genre with an exceptional gaming experience. This one's so vague, I'm sure someone are going to argue yes, but I don't see anybody copying anything from this game except for how to scam people and get away with it. Cyberpunk 2077 will forever go down in history for me as the greatest gaming disappointment, with Fallout 4 being a close second. The sad part is, I don't even think it's a bad game, but it was built up to be one of the greatest games ever made by a company that had done no wrong up until this point, and then they decided to stab us all in the back in the name of money. And people wonder why I'm so critical of fanboys. Why the fuck would you ever defend a multi-million-dollar or even billion-dollar corporation? They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about the quality of their own product or any sort of artistic vision. And this is yet another example in the long list of examples. The best thing I can say about this game is at least CDPR seem committed to making it better. But no matter how many improvements they make, this will never be the game I wanted it to be, and likely never the game most RPG fans wanted. This is not going to go down in history as the next Fallout New Vegas. They would have to upheaval the entire combat system and RPG leveling and all sorts of other shit, and it would be impossible to rewrite the story, so they're fucked. The game is fucked. The best I can hope for is they make a sequel someday that fixes these things, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Hey guys, thanks for watching.